MoDynamics in the new version of MoGraph can really help you create some pretty complex animations. Now, if you're not familiar with what dynamics are, that's basically how we can recreate real-world simulations with object interactions. For example, if I wanted this cube to fall down and knock all these platonic objects around and bounce all over the screen, I would go ahead and set up dynamic interactions. Otherwise, with animation, I could just go ahead and select a cube and move it right into the middle of these objects, and they actually have no mass or density or anything like that. So let's go ahead and undo that last cube move, and let's check out MoDynamics. So in our scene here, I have a cube, a plane, a cloner object with this platonic primitive object. And I got that in the primitive objects pop-up menu right over here. I wanted to use an object that had a bunch of different sides, so as we got things bouncing around the screen here, you could really see how the interaction starts to happen. So let's go ahead and collapse our cloner object and drag a lasso around everything in the Objects Manager. To enable MoDynamics, all we have to do is go to the Tags menu, go down to MoGraph Tags, and choose Rigid Body. When we do that, MoGraph automatically figures out what we're trying to do in the scene and assigns the appropriate tag. Now, I'll go back and dissect these tags in a second. What I want to do right now is show you what's happening. If we press play, as you can see in the scene here, I have my cloner objects just automatically falling down in the scene. Now, our cube is just sort of floating in space. If we go ahead and deselect all the tags, let's select the cube tag and see what's going on here. Right now, I have a dynamics tag set to collision, but nothing is colliding with the cube, so it's not actually moving. If we select our cloner object tag here, notice we have a couple more options. We have options for mass, as well as force, as well as collision. When you are using MoGraph objects, whether it be a cloner object or a matrix object or fracture object, you'll be able to use this rigid body tag that has collision as well as mass and force. Now, in the dynamics section of the rigid body tag, we could set a trigger here. So instead of the dynamics happening immediately, we could set it to only happen on collision. So if we move our playhead back to the beginning and press play, notice nothing's happening in the scene yet. Now, just to show you, the plane tag is set up here for a rigid body tag, and it's set for dynamics and collision. Basically, this means anything can collide with it, but it's not going to generate any type of reaction directly until another object bounces into it. So what we need to do is change the tag on the cube so the cube comes down and actually collides with these cloner objects. The easiest way to do that is to just add the cube into a cloner object. So let's delete the rigid body tag for now. And with the cube selected, hold down Alt or Option on your keyboard, go up to MoGraph and choose Cloner Object. Now let's change the count down to 1, and now we have a cloner object just the same size as our cube. Let's go ahead and rename that cube and collapse the cloner object. Now with the cube selected, go to Tags, MoGraph Tags, and choose Rigid Body. In the Dynamics section, make sure the trigger is set to immediately. Now if we move our playhead back to the beginning and press play, notice now the box comes down and collides with the other cloner objects. That's pretty powerful in and of itself, but let's look at some of the ways we can actually tweak this animation. Within the cube rigid body tag, let's look at mass. Right now it's set to world